Welcome to episode number 331 of the Beyond Social Media Show, the podcast for all of you marketing, advertising, public relations, and communications professionals. You can find us by searching for Beyond Social Media Show. We are recording live on Facebook on November 14, 2020. A lot of things to talk about this week, including Lightspeed Internet, sequential video, President in Waiting, Megaphone, VR furries, Gmail tweets, YouTube unwind, Oreo ID, COVID master, our visual future, fascism's a bad look, and legalize it, don't criticize it. Some stats on some pot stats that you want to stick around for the end of the show. But we kick it off with the best story of the week as usual. And BL always has that honor. BL, what do you got?
Well, I think the pot stats are pretty cool. We've talked about Google's Moonshot, Alphabet's Moonshot before, and that's where they do like all their really cool research. So incredibly, more than 3 billion people still don't have internet access. And so now Alphabet's Moonshot is doing something called Project Taara, and they're testing a completely new approach because this is like fiber, but without cables. And Taara uses light to transmit information at super high speeds through the air as a very narrow, invisible beam. And this project's bringing high-speed internet to the developing world, which is really quite a remarkable thing. So the problem is in remote areas where there's rough terrain or forests, one of the challenges is the cost of the infrastructure of laying the cable. The fiber optic cables are difficult to get down and expensive. So Project Taara is making impossible things possible and expanding global access to fast, reliable, and affordable internet with beams of light. And I wish you would get that in Chaska. That would be great. So
you just preempted me. I was going to say, when am I getting it?
Yeah. Small boxes that have electrical communication and optical tech are placed really high above the ground, and they send out this infrared light in a beam that's roughly the diameter of a chopstick, and it goes to another remote terminal as far as 12 miles away and creates a new zone of wireless connectivity. And so the team has tested it in a series of pilots in a remote part of India. The beam doesn't work if it's interrupted, like if a bird flies by. So that's why the terminals are placed high above people and trees. And if a bird flies in front of the beam, it would interrupt it, so they can't have that. Company says the beam of light is safe for skin and eyes, and it won't harm wildlife. So with a clear line of sight, wireless optical communication technology can create, this is amazing, can transmit data at high speeds up to 20 Gbps. A single link can cover distances up to 20 kilometers and can be used to also to extend fiber networks. So while it probably doesn't make sense to use this kind of tech in areas where other options are possible. Sorry, Dave. In some places, it could bring users online to access things like telemedicine, agricultural help for farmers, online learning, along with, cat videos, and also cyberbullying and misinformation, but they don't have it now. And I just think this is an enormous advance for connectivity.
So
and, everybody's trying to do it, but Google's really doing it.
Yeah. So is it like telephone poles? You need to put up a series of telephone poles to put a receiver on top, or that sends a beam?
No, they're. I'm not sure what holds them up. I'll have to research what holds them up.
Yeah.
Whether they're using their, satellites to put them up. I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not getting it at Chaska, so tough luck. This is cool. This is from Think with Google, which always puts out interesting stuff. They have a post that so YouTube challenged creative agencies and filmmakers from Tribeca Studios to create sequential stories that compel people to get involved to solve social problems. So they have you have eight different series of sequential video storytelling that they highlight in this post, from ending poverty to fighting inequality. They basically short video ads that tell a story when watched in sequence. So they're doing video ad sequencing. The story unfolds based on how YouTube viewers choose to interact with the videos. So you basically, they set up a sequencing tree of if-then statements using videos. So if you watch a first video, then it'll show you the next video in the sequence. If you skip the video, then it'll show you a different video to get you to re-engage. And so there's an example. One of the examples is the Unskippable campaign. And this is, I'll just read from the opening text to describe the campaign. We skip past ads all the time, but what happens when we do it to people? In a series of powerful conversations, Deutsche LA asked viewers to acknowledge the experience of unhoused individuals instead of tuning them out. This sequence aims to build empathy and remind viewers that simple choices can have real world impact. So it starts out with a kid sitting on a sidewalk, basically saying, don't skip past me. If you skip past, then it goes back to you should really pay attention to me. But it tells the story of what homelessness is like, and in a very creative way. So these are great examples in and of themselves, but also it illustrates how you can use video advertising to tell a story through video. You can do this using YouTube. You can do it on Facebook as well. Just based on their metrics, you can trigger video ads to sequence after somebody's viewed the previous one. So interesting example. Put the link in the show notes for people to check out.
That is interesting. So another thing that happened that I think is really good is that Biden-Harris campaign has launched their transition website, and it's called Build Back Better. And it lists the plans for combating COVID, racial equity, economic recovery, and climate change. And to me, it's a great example of really clear communication that we can expect from this team. And it lists their priorities and the steps that they're going to take when he enters office. And it's just such a relief to see that President Biden plans to hit the ground running and take real action. But more importantly to me, is a clear communicator. And, it doesn't, he can finish his sentences, and so can she.
Yeah, well, we need a communications plan to deal with this COVID virus. So let's hope it works. This is a interesting move by Spotify. This is from The Verge's Ashley Carmen, who reports that Spotify is buying podcast hosting company Megaphone for $235 million. So this deal means that more shows will have access to Spotify's proprietary advertising technology. So they have something called streaming ad insertion. In the Spotify system makes real-time decisions about which ads to show, or to, I guess you don't show an audio ad, but play yeah. To a specific listener based on the data that they have, which is a lot, and obviously based on the goals of the campaign, of the ad campaign itself. No other hosting services offer this streaming ad insertion technology. So if you want to target Spotify users using their data, you'll need to host your show on Megaphone, pay to host your show on Megaphone, or pay to have them distribute your ads. But Megaphone hosts over 5,500 shows from big publishers like Slate, Disney, Vox Media. But now, Spotify, we've talked about these different acquisitions they've been making in the past. Spotify now owns a network of exclusive shows. They've been buying up the rights to podcasts. They have obviously a podcast player. They have podcast creation software, which we've talked about previously. They have now this hosting company for hosting audio, and obviously they have their own sales team. So they are, I mean, they've been positioning themselves as a guerrilla of podcasting, and this solidifies it.
And don't they also have a research platform, an analytics platform?
Yeah, they do, and they because of all the data they have on their users, those analytics are going to be more, richer than anybody else.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, as you may recall, last week there was the Mayor Giuliani held a press event for Trump, and he said it was going to be at the Four Seasons, but I guess they were in too big a hurry, so it ended up being at the Four Seasons Lumber Shop or whatever it was called. So this is from a BuzzFeed story by Tom Cooper and Carolyn Haskins. And for those of you who don't know, furries are people who run around in fur suits with animal heads. It's a subculture that's interested in anthropomorphic animal characters with human personalities and characteristics. So, for example, one night I'm coming home from the subway and there's a guy wearing a bear head, and he's just walking down the street with his briefcase like everybody else, but he was a furry. And so that's the so now they've come to the Four Seasons Total Landscaping, which was the brilliant choice that that the Trump campaign made when they placed their press conference smack dab in between a crematorium and a sex shop, where Giuliani and other supporters failed election campaign addressed the press after media outlets called the race. So now it exists in VR, and there's weather detailing, and last minute Trump podium is added, and furries rejoicing throughout the scene. So Cooper Tom is a fursuiter and a popular YouTuber, and he posted a video on Twitter Monday morning of furries circling the scene, and in the massive multiplayer virtual chat platform VR Chat, and apparently virtual versions of a neighborhood crematorium and sex shops are in the works.
Yeah.
So the Four Seasons will live on in virtual reality.
Yeah, I don't know what to say.
What can you say?
So this is a quick one. I came across this this past week. I will email myself links to stories for the show that I think will want to talk about or whatever, and that includes tweets. So I'll find something on Twitter, I'll email that link to the tweet that I found to myself, and I just discovered that one of those tweets that I emailed myself was in the email in Gmail, was embedded. So it looked like Gmail had automatically embedded the link to the tweet that I sent. So just interesting. Thought I'd mention it.
I have not seen that. That is interesting. You mean when you opened it?
Yeah, I emailed it to myself, and then when I went back to it later, opened the email, it was actually the tweet was there. It wasn't just the link.
Oh, I have to try that. I haven't noticed that before. So we talked about MmHmm, which is the overlay for video conferencing that was in beta. And you rightly called it a revolutionary change in streaming. And so MmHmm for iOS came out of beta this week. And those of us who were beta testers get 3 months free. And then it's going to cost $10 a month or $100 a year, and the Windows version is to come. And so in a blog post, they demonstrated how a variety of users are incorporating the platform, and someone named, let me screw this up, Tamira Miyasato's reading group it's called Indigenous Storytime, and it was born during the pandemic, and it shares stories based on Lakota culture in Lakota Indigenous language, and it shares the values and the culture to provide children with access to information they won't necessarily receive in school settings. So in the video used as an example, a children's storybook teaches children how to count to 10 in both Lakota and English. And I have a video of it. It's really quite wonderful. And it's done in MmHmm. And there are several other examples in another story that I'll add. But it's so cool. And I would be doing it right now, except the last time I tried it, it crashed my computer. So I didn't want to do it during a Zoom.
Not quite out of beta, I guess.
Well, yeah. So what else you have in good stories?
This is from PC Magazine's Sharon Shibu, who reports that YouTube is canceling its annual Rewind video, which started in 2010 and is usually released every December. It celebrates creators, trends, music that define the year, the past year. But 2020 being what it is, yep, YouTube tweeted, 2020 has been different and it doesn't feel right to carry on as if it weren't, so we're taking a break from Rewind this year. It turns out that Rewind is not particularly popular. In 2018, the Rewind video, the 2018 Rewind video is the most disliked video on YouTube. 18.51 million dislikes, and Rewind 2019 is the 5th most disliked video on YouTube with 9.23 million dislikes. Well, I mean, think about the past 4 years. They've been pretty crappy. So
yeah, they have. So does that bring us to bad news, Dave?
I got one more good one before we move on to bad. This is pretty awesome. This is from Crane's Chicago Business. Ilsa Liffering, I think is how you pronounce the name. Oreo cookies is allowing you to customize your own Oreo cookies. So there's a website called Oreo ID, and through it you can choose your own cream colors. So you can, rather than the standard white, you can choose red, blue, whatever cream color you want. You can decorate your cookies with sprinkles and different colored sprinkles. You can choose a traditional or a white fudge dip if you want to do that. You can add a photo and text messages to your cookie design. So you can have a photo. We could put like the logo. Beyond Social Media Show logo on there, and put some text to accompany the message. People can choose you choose a package for your creations in black or white boxes, and prices range from 20 2-count packs of cookies for $2.50 each to 24-count boxes for $52.95, and clever thing to do.
Wait, they actually make the cookies?
Yeah. So you can get the cookies. Yeah. So Oreo plans to keep this site up past the holidays. It's not just a holiday promotion thing. So yeah, I think I'll try it out.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that sounds great. So on to bad news. This is, I guess this could have gone in good news in a way. I mean, it's kind of our new future normal. In an exclusive story this week, Billboard reported that Ticketmaster plans a post-pandemic safety protocol that makes you verify COVID vaccines or a negative test status in a 24 to 72 hour window. And they said that's, but then the companies subsequently said that's not how it works. But when you think about it, like, what could go wrong? Everybody has to come and demonstrate that they either had a vaccine or that they tested negative. And then what? Like, do you get your ticket after you do that, or do you buy it before and then go get your test? And anyway, the plan is impossibly complicated, and this could be our post-vaccine new normal. And we want live concerts, we want live sports events back, and this might be how it can happen. But the potential for problems is definitely huge. So Ticketmaster says the plan was widely misreported and that it will actually be up to each promoter to set the standards for their events. So imagine, if you will, that happening, and then think about, hey, what could go wrong with that if every promoter has to deal with this situation? So if it's approved, no matter who runs the program, after you purchase a ticket for the concert, you need to verify that you already had your vaccine, which who knows what that's going to mean, or that you tested negative for the coronavirus 24 to 72 hours before the concert. Then the length of coverage that a test would provide would be governed by regional health authorities. And if attendees of a Friday night concert had to be tested 48 hours in advance, most could start the process the day before the event, but not all, because they wouldn't all get their results. It has a 24-hour window. Most people would likely be tested the same day of the event at a health clinic, but once the test is complete, then the fan has to instruct the lab to deliver the results to this Healthy Pass app like Clear or IBM. And if the tests were negative or the fan was vaccinated, the Health Pass would verify that the attendee could go to the concert, and Ticketmaster would then issue the credentials needed to access the event. I mean, I can just see the pandemonium that's going to happen. If the fan tested positive or didn't take a test to verify their status, they would not be granted access to the event. Ticketmaster says they wouldn't store or have access to our medical records, and they would only receive verification of whether we're cleared to attend an event on a given date. And of course, different states will have different requirements. So to date, the Food and Drug Administration has not approved any third-party companies that could provide the kind of complex technology that would be needed to deliver this stuff. But Ticketmaster's president, here's a name for you, Mark Yovici, expects that the demand for digital screening services, which are going to be needed for airline travel, for employment verification, theme park entry, that they're going to have a whole new wave of investors and entrepreneurs to fuel the growth of this COVID-19 technology that we're all going to need. I can hardly wait.
Yeah, sounds complicated.
Tremendously.
And if it's anything like Ticketmaster's Ticketmaster
Right,
app,
exactly.
why would I trust it?
Yeah.
We talked about that. I don't remember what episode it was, but their Ticketmaster app is craptastic.
Horrifying.
Yeah. So yeah, not
And the
putting a lot of
website's
faith
no
in that.
better.
No.
Yeah.
All right. So this is I'm gonna throw a lot of stats at you. This is from the Drums Martin Kin. Are you ready? Are you
I'm always ready for
seated? Because
geeky
there's
stats.
a lot of stats here. TikTok has more than 500 million active users, and their short video clips are watched 17 billion times a month. And there are only like 7.5 billion people on Earth, so that's a big number. Snap has 300 million users. It's growing faster than Facebook and Twitter, which are, text-based social networks as opposed to video. Instagram is favored by Gen Z over Facebook, and its content is more likely to be shared. YouTube is the second most visited website in the world, with over 2 billion monthly users. And streaming services are expected to spend more than $35 billion a year on new video content. 72% of consumers say they prefer all marketing to be video. There's a 1958 VW advertising print ad that is a classic. It's cited for its visual austerity, and it only contained 165 words. But last year, VW ran a magazine ad that had all of 13 words. Newspapers have seen their subscriptions decline 70% since 2000, and 92% of consumers watch videos with the sound turned off. Almost 90% of the information going into our brain is visual. 40% of the neural fibers flow to our retinas. So what to make of all these stats, BL? What do you think?
This means we're not reading anymore.
Thank you very much. In episode 147, we had this conversation about us entering a post-literate society in 2016, and that's exactly what this article is about. It's basically prepare for the consumer who is post-literate. It's a long article. It's a too long must-read article, so we'll put a link to it in the show notes. The second half of it, I mean, the first half is basically making the argument he did with all these stats that we're entering a post-literate society. The second half of it is what to do about it as a marketer, as a brand, and basically the crux of it is your brand identity must be so strong and communicated so simply through imagery with the same consistent colors, fonts, shapes, and styles to be able to stand out from the crowd. So it's fascinating read. Put a link to it in the show notes.
There's a lot of implications of post-literacy that aren't just advertising, that are frightening.
Yeah.
I mean, people who get their news from the internet only or from TV only. And I had a conversation like that this morning. Somebody had seen something on TV and interpreted it as, didn't hear the whole conversation, which you don't. You hear a snippet. And that's what people are listening to. Snippet here, snippet there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm out of bad news. That was my terrible bad news about our horrible future.
I have one more. This is from Above the Law by Catherine Rubino, who is reporting on the it turns out that fascism is not a good look for law firms. That a society based on the rule of law, having law firms using law to undermine the rule of law and democracy is not a good look. So there was a New York Times article that called out Jones Day and Porter Wright over their election litigation representations. And if you've been following what Trump campaign is trying to do, the legal arguments they're making are absurd.
They get thrown out of every court.
Everything has been thrown out, but there's there are high-powered law firms behind this litigation. So the New York Times had an article that was calling out the Lincoln Project jumped on board the criticism, promising to spend $500,000 on an ad campaign going after these law firms and their clients. And then Midas Touch, the PAC that was running ads during the election, released a Jones Day attack ad. So there's another firm named Snell and Wilmer who withdrew as counsel of record for the Republican National Committee, which had been teaming up with the Trump campaign and the Arizona Republican Party to challenge, the results in Arizona. So it's fascinating. I mean, we've been talking since Trump basically was elected over and over again about how brands are being forced to take sides. And
now law firms are.
And getting attack ads on corporations, on companies. It's weird. It's just when the going gets tough, the weird turn pro, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Midas Touch, really has done some impactful work. But I was at a Lincoln Project town hall the other night, and they were just talking about how much work is left to be done and how much money and what works and what doesn't. And none of these doomsday ads really work. People tune them out. So given that we're in a doomsday situation, we don't want to hear about that, I guess. But on to smiles. So how did we get through election night? Apparently alcohol and carbs got America through election night. This is from Vox Story by Melinda Foucault. And apparently fries, cheese, and tons of alcohol were these self-soothing choices during election night. And so, we doom scrolled and we kept ordering delivery and we drank ourselves through the night. Searches for fries near me and liquor store near me really got to record highs. And Vox reached out to delivery services around the country to find out what Americans ate and drank, and fries were the big one. So according to data from DoorDash, fried and carb-filled foods were popular on election night. The most ordered were French fries, which is probably not a surprise because those go well with alcohol. And in general, people just basically retreated to their basest instincts, and they ordered items like chicken fingers, which were the number 2 search, mozzarella sticks, the number 10, and hot fudge sundaes, the number 13. And these foods are classics from our childhood, and so it's easy to self-soothe ourselves in a panic situation. And on the sweet side, people had baked goods like cinnamon rolls, which were number 8, apple pie, number 9, 2 milkshake flavors made it into the 20 most ordered items. Chocolate was number 11, and strawberries number 15. Now, I do not know how ice cream was not in this top 15 list. There's something wrong with that list.
I can't remember what I was eating on election
Ice
night.
cream over here.
Yeah.
Whole pint of Haagen-Dazs. Shared it with the dog.
Scare bots. We love robots. Here's another story about robots. This is from Now This News, which had apparently there's a town in Takakawa. There we go. Takakawa, Japan, that had installed robot wolves to scare away bears. So it's just like it's a scarecrow on a stick, but it's a robot wolf. It's like quadrupedal robot with fur on it, and it's dressed up to look like a wolf, and apparently it works. So they have not had any bear encounters since purchasing and installing the 2 Scarebot wolf robots. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Funny.
Yeah,
well, when I lived in one of my apartments, there were pigeons that were always under my air conditioner, and all pigeons do is coo and have sex, and
they
so
shit a lot too.
And they shit a lot. Yes, they do. And so first I put pinwheels, and they were like, "Oh, the circus!" They loved those. Then I had an owl that had eyes that lit up, and they just sat on it and shit on it. I mean, so robot, that would have been good. That's really funny. So does that bring us to shiny new stuff?
Yes, it does.
I got a good one. This was it's called Profile Pic Maker. It was in Product Hunt one day, and you can take any photo and you can upload it, and it basically enhances your photo, takes out the background, and then can put in a variety of backgrounds that you can then use for your photo. So I have an example of the one I changed mine in Twitter, and I have an example of the ones that I could have chosen from in the show notes, but very cool.
Mine is, this is from Search Engine Journal's Roger Monti, who writes about Google's web stories. So this is like, social media stories, but for the web. And so Google has built a WordPress plugin that is out of beta that makes it easy for you to create web stories. The web story formats show up in Google Search, Google Images, Google Discover on their app, and in the Google app. And so I will put a link to a screenshot of how they show up in Discover in the show notes. But it's a plugin that Google has developed. They've just released it out of beta, as I said. It has a drag and drop interface and template, so it makes it easy to create these web stories. But creating them then gives you additional opportunities to get found through search. So there you go.
Have you tried it?
Not yet. I was planning on installing it on our site and trying it.
Oh, cool.
There, yeah.
So the other one that I have is, my family had a typography business, so everything text and type is interesting to me. And this is called Easel, EASIL, and it's curved text. And so there's a free and a paid plan, but the free plan has 2,500 plus all-inclusive templates and free graphic elements and 1,000,000 plus free stock images, and you can organize them in layers and groups, and you can upload your own images, and you can curve the text, which it looks so nice. And there's a drop shadow and glow, and you can organize your photos into folders, and it really does beautiful things. And so the free plan is certainly worth a try.
Very
Do
cool.
you have another one?
I don't.
Oh, this is we just talked about this before the show. It's a quick, free way to extract MP3s from your YouTube videos. It's called Clidio, and it works with any browser and any device that's connected to the internet, and it will extract a portion of the MP3 or the whole thing. One time it worked, and the next time it didn't, and then 2 out of 3 times it worked. So it's worth taking a look at.
And it's free?
So you have a project, right?
Is it free?
Is it free? There is a free version.
Yes, I have a project. This is a podcast, a new podcast that I've been producing. That I've been excited to talk about, and I can finally talk about because it's gone live. It's called the Black Swans Podcast, and it's hosted by Suzanne Abrams and Shayna Sissel. They are 2 financial advisors. It is the tagline for the podcast is the show that spotlights women in finance. It's fantastic conversation. They have guests every episode, and they've got 2 episodes out now. Perth Toll was the first guest for the first episode. She is the founder of Life and Liberty Indexes. She has lived and worked in Beijing and Hong Kong, and she has a fascinating. Basically, she's got a index fund that looks at freedom indicators. So markets that have free enterprise economic systems, freedom of speech. She just looks at all these different factors that indicate how free a society is, and her indexes are weighted based on those metrics. So it was a fascinating discussion in that regard, but also she has some fascinating insights into the democracy, what's going on with the democracy movement in Hong Kong now that Beijing is influencing, or kind of cracking down on democracy there. So that's the first episode. The second episode had Dr. Carrie Mantha, who is, she's directed more than $2 billion in investment capital in cutting edge biotech and medical device companies. She's got kind of an expertise in finance and healthcare. And she lives in Norway. So she's got a fascinating take on the coronavirus and how different governments are responding. One, because it's not the U.S. perspective, which we pretty much see what the U.S. perspective is. So it's interesting to get a take from somebody who's not in the U.S. But also, she lives in Norway, and next door is Sweden, and those 2 countries had completely different approaches to dealing with the coronavirus. So getting her take on how those 2 countries dealt with it is fascinating as well. Just great conversation, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes so people can check it out.
Those sound really interesting.
Yeah.
So, we've been talking politics, but this one is a funny one. There was a Trump voter fraud hotline, and they answer the phone there, Trump War Room. And it was Giuliani used the hashtag Stop the Steal, and he announced that he had started this. So TikTok and Twitter trolled the voter fraud hotline and published the name of, which has slipped my mind, the name of the person who's not allowing the Biden campaign to be certified, published her direct number, and we all called her, and and left her messages. And kids on TikTok made all these videos that were really very funny, and they trolled. And these are the same people who were responsible for making Trump think 1 million people were coming to one of his rallies that basically nobody came to when they all bought tickets on TikTok. So there are hilarious fake news, videos that they made. You have to see them.
I was hoping we would be able to not talk about politics.
You can't help it.
But well, I mean, the guy won't go away.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so mine is, there's a Reuters story by Chris Kahn, who reports on the results of a Reuters Ipsos poll, which the only thing I'm going to talk about this article is that the poll indicates that only 3% of Americans think Trump won. Go away.
That's incredible. He should be packing his bags because he's going to jail. The whole thing is him trying to stay out of jail. That's the whole thing. And, do not pass go, just go home. Pro tips. This is one that's near and dear to my heart. Don't send email pitches with attachments. If you have a release, put the whole release in the email, or give us a quick summary and put a link to where we can see it online. Don't ask me, can I send the press release? Just send the freaking press release. And for photos and other illustrations, just include a link. So the other reason, besides that it annoys people, is that a lot of companies have firewalls that reject unsolicited attachments. And I have to say, I hate when a PR person asks me if it's okay to send the release. Just give it to me. Put it in the email. I'm interested. I'll let you know. That happens every day, that you have attachments that from people you don't know.
Yeah, I'm not going to open up attachments from somebody I don't
know.
Sorry. So mine is, this is from a ZDNet article by Caitlin Simpanu, I think.
Looks like Simpanu.
Yeah, thank you. This is Microsoft is urging people to abandon the telephone-based multi-factor authentication, like those text codes that you get, or voice calls that you get to authenticate that you are who you say you are, and instead replace them with newer multi-factor authentication tech like app-based authenticators and security keys. So the reason is that text and voice calls are transmitted in clear text and they can be easily intercepted.
Really?
Yeah, apparently. And I have, so when I log into like Flickr or my Yahoo account on the web, it gives me, I get a notification in my Yahoo app on my phone that says, somebody's trying to log in. Is it you? And you approve it or deny it. So that's kind of the type of authentication they're talking about here, which is actually a lot easier because you just have to tap a button rather than typing in the code or whatever. So there's that pro tip.
I got one of those from Amazon the other night because I got a phishing email, which was so obvious by the English, but it was telling me that there was an unauthorized something or another to my account. So I called Amazon, and before they, had the conversation, they sent me a text saying, is this you calling us, yes or no? And yeah, it is easier, but I don't know. I'm sure those can be intercepted too.
All right, let's wrap this up with some numbers, weekly numbers. Legalize It. This is from Gallup. 12% of Americans in 1969 supported legalizing marijuana. This year, that number is 68%. So my have times changed. They have a breakdown of demographics of support for legalizing marijuana. Men and women, more than 2/3, 69% of men, 66% of women approve legalization. The younger you are, the more likely you're going to approve of it. The older you are, the less likely. So 18 to 29, 79% said they approved of it, and 65 plus, only 55% approved of it. The still majority. The more educated you are, the more likely you're going to approve legalization. 76% of college grads approved, 64% of not college degree approved. The wealthier you are, the more likely you're going to approve. 74% of households with 100,000 plus income approve versus 67% of households with less than 40,000 household income approve. So there you go. Times they are changing. It's going to be
well.
Yeah, it's going to be legal. I mean, it's inevitable that legalization is going to occur, even with Biden not really being that much in favor of it, because state governments are completely drained of any income. I mean, COVID has devastated state government budgets. So I think you're going to see a wave of legalization for those states that have not yet, just to raise tax revenue.
Well, New Jersey legalized it, and Massachusetts legalized it last year, and it's coming. New York, not yet, though. But from what I hear, the pot in the dispensaries is not very good, so the illegal market's not going away.
Yeah, I don't know. Tell that to some of my friends who go to California all the time. And
California is different because California has this whole surplus of pot, so it's cheap and it's great. I know that. I heard that. Anyway, that brings us to the end of episode 331 of the Beyond Social Media Show. And if you want to find us, you just search Beyond Social Media Show. Links to everything we talked about today will be at beyondsocialmediashow.com/331. And we hope that you will let us know what you think and leave us a review. So I'm here with David Erickson, and on Twitter, he's D Erickson. On Instagram, he's DE Erickson. On YouTube, he's E Strategy, and he blogs at e-strategyblog.com. I'm BL Achman. I'm What's Next on Twitter. My blog is What's Next Blog. My YouTube channel is What's Next Blog. I have a website at blachman.com, and Lucy the Rescue Puppy is on Instagram. If you want to find the show, beyondsocialmediashow.com is our blog, who has every episode we've ever done with the videos and all the links. And on Twitter, we are at BS Media Show. So please do subscribe to the podcast. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Google or Apple or Spotify or Stitcher or iHeartRadio. We're in all of those places. And we will be back next week. Same station, probably different time.
Thanks for watching.